In early January, Flo and I took a trip to York Museum Gardens. I grew up in York from the ages of 1 to 9 and have such lovely memories of this space, including going on a brownie parade. The garden is home to the Yorkshire Museum, which has 5 permanent collections covering biology, geology, archaeology, numismatics and astronomy. This beautiful tree is one of the first things you come to, and I just love how they've attached wires so the tree is helping to hold up one of its lower branches that just has a really cool shape. I personally think that the museum gardens are the best green space in York city centre, as it has so much to offer. Running next to the River Ouse, it has a great variety of trees, shrubs, perennials and bulbs, all surrounding the medieval ruins of St Mary's Abbey and the medieval hospitium, which was a guest house for the abbey. It also has an edible wood, wildflower patch and enclosed spaces for wildlife to flourish. Here we are approaching the museum, and if you turn to the left you can see the medieval hospitium. I discovered that they do 1-hour guided tours of the history of the garden led by the garden team on Saturdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. with a £5 donation. I didn't have time to do one of the tours this weekend that we went, but I'm definitely going to keep that in mind for next time we're down in York, because I would love to do that. The garden team were also conducting bird counting surveys to help the RSPB monitor wild bird populations as part of their big garden bird watch, and they were welcoming the public to join in, which sounds like a lot of fun, but again, it was on a weekend that we weren't there, unfortunately. The herbaceous borders were planted with a huge variety of plants and trees, including Erigeron, Salvia, Veronica, Geum, Nepeta, dogwood, hellebores, and they even had a beautiful cherry tree blossoming in the background. Around the corner, they had an outdoor game which was a medieval twister. How many words can you spell out by touching each letter at the same time with your hands and feet? In the museum, you can see the original medieval alphabet tiles from the floor of the Abbey Church. These are the hauntingly beautiful ruins of St Mary's Abbey. The blurb on the York Museum Gardens website says about the Abbey that it was built in 1088. And the ruins we see now are all that remains of one of the wealthiest and most powerful Benedictine monasteries in England. Its story ties together 2 of the most important events in English history. It was begun by William the Conqueror to reinforce his hold in the north after 1066, and ended by Henry VIII as a consequence of his reformation of the church. The Abbey estate occupied the entire site of the museum gardens, and the abbot was one of the most powerful clergymen of his day, on par with the Archbishop of York. In medieval York, the abbey sat opposite and mirrored the York Minster, 2 great buildings dedicated to worship. The monks would spend their days working in abbey administration, copying books, trading with merchants, providing food and supplies for the monastery, managing the abbey's estates and helping the poor. King Henry VIII banned all monasteries in England in the 1530s. The monks at St Mary's were pensioned off in 1540, and the abbey buildings were converted into a palace for the king when he visited York. Gradually, they fell into ruins and were used as agricultural buildings before being excavated by the Yorkshire Philosophical Society in the 1820s. We are now entering the edible wood. As stated on York Museum Gardens website, the edible wood is located in the York Museum Gardens and was planted in July 2015. The design of the edible wood is based on the principles of permaculture and forest gardening, exploring our relationship with food and the future of crop production. It features plants that have an edible component and are both attractive and useful, valuable qualities as home gardens become smaller and people search for multifunctional plants. When mature, the garden will have an intimate enclosed atmosphere with small, light-filled glades and serpentine paths meandering through. A garden for exploration, full of unexpected flavours and hidden corners. The wonderful array of trees, shrubs, herbaceous plants and bulbs includes unusual species such as the pineapple guave and Szechuan pepper, alongside more familiar herbs, fruits and vegetables such as mint, thyme, red currants, rhubarb, sea kale and Jerusalem artichokes. The garden contains many different types of ornamental onions. These hardy bulbs are a great addition to any garden, being attractive and easy to grow with edible flowers and leaves. The medlar is a small tree closely related to the apple. Its fruit is only edible when allowed to rot slightly, a process known as bletting. It was a popular fruit in Elizabethan times. We're now approaching a section of grass which has been laid to wildflower, and it's for a special exhibition that the museum is doing in the spring. So if we cannot all get down to York in the spring, we'll definitely go and try and see this, as I'm sure it will look beautiful. We're coming up to some of my absolute favourite trees, the corkscrew hazel, otherwise known as Corylus avellana contata. And I just love them because they look like they're straight out of a fairy tale. They just look so whimsical and witchy and just gorgeous with all their twisted branches. I was also really happy to see lots of insect houses on the way out of the garden. After the edible wood, I came across a most beautiful mosaic. On the York Museum Gardens website, it describes it as a 4 metre by 4 metre walk-on pebble mosaic, which depicts the Yorkshire section of William Smith's famous geological map of 1815. Artist Jeanette Ireland used many imaginative devices, including fossils, both real and formed from pebbles, discarded stone from the Minster, and tiny millstones made of millstone grit to represent the ideas which Smith was demonstrating in his map. The walk-on mosaic map was commissioned jointly by the Yorkshire Philosophical Society and York Museums Trust in 2015. It represents the Yorkshire part of William Smith's famous map. Smith's map was an incredible achievement. It was the first ever geological map of a whole country and was surveyed by Smith alone, travelling on foot and horseback. It shows the rock groupings nearest to the surface and illustrates Smith's discovery, based on his understanding of the embedded fossils, that rock strata are continuous across hundreds of miles, but gradually tilted towards the east. The pebbles in the mosaic reflect the colours Smith used in his map, but genuine Yorkshire rocks are displayed in the flower beds on either side of the mosaic, alongside strips of the pebbles used to represent them. An original copy of this famous map can be seen in the Yorkshire Museum, which also houses one of the best fossil collections in the country. The museum, now run by York Museums Trust, was built in 1830 by the Yorkshire Philosophical Society, who sponsored a course of lectures by Smith and employed his nephew, John Phillips, as the first keeper of the museum. Behind this beautiful magnolia and euphorbia border is an area that looks like it's been specifically sealed off for wildlife. The really cool log fence looks like a giant bug hotel, and behind that, the area is a lot wilder with loads of bird feeders in the distance. I was drawn to the sheltered seating area by the pretty pink colour of the viburnum flowers. Over in the distance you can see the River Ouse and the bright yellow and red of dogwoods. Further along are the beautiful zingy lime yellow flowers of a mahonia. I was admiring this carpet of winter aconites when a group of pigeons decided to put on a show. As I was leaving the park, I came across this plaque which read, "This tree was planted in memory of Charles Allen, 1887 to 1972, a distinguished naturalist who gave great service to the museum and gardens." How cool is this? A happy to chat bench. Sit here if you don't mind someone stopping to say hello. I think we need more of these. It's a very, very cool idea to bring people together in outdoor spaces. Now we're on the other side of the River Ouse looking over to the gardens. In a minute, you'll see that I captured 4 swans flying over. I was so chuffed to get this. I heard them coming before I saw them and I managed to film them in time. And I just love that they're just so huge and but just the presence they have when they fly over is really cool. We followed the river and came across a bat box on this majestic tree. Bat boxes help bats to move into areas with limited roosting space. If you want to help the bats and make your own bat box, the Wildlife Trust has a how-to page on their website. We headed home after a lovely weekend in York and had to get our fill of knuckles and Rufio as we always miss them when we go away. Once we were back, I decided to take on a mission to tidy up a local area of mine which has been filled with litter. So far, I've filled up 3 bags for life full of rubbish, so it's looking a lot better than it was, but I'm determined to keep going until it's completely litter-free. This self-imposed mission inspired me to buy a foldable litter picker to make it a bit easier. I bring the litter back with me to sort into our various bins and then hang up the bag for life on the washing line to wash away all the dirt ready for next time. I also did an inspection of our back garden beds and was delighted to see new growth appearing all over the place. January was a very stormy month for us here in Scotland, with what felt like constant weather warnings. The protective coverings on our outdoor table and chairs had been blown off, so I took 5 minutes on a calmer day to put them back on. I was lucky enough to find a worm on the table cover, so quickly put him back into one of the beds where they can work their magic on the soil. In the middle of February, we had the most gorgeous spring-like day, so I took the opportunity to get out and about. It was also the first sunglasses day of the year, which is so exciting. My first stop was the National Museum of Scotland, as they had the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition on. I've been lucky enough to have seen many of these exhibitions since my early 20s, and they are always incredible. They showcase wildlife photographers from across the world within different age categories and in different image categories, such as animal portraits, urban wildlife, underwater, bird behaviour and photojournalism. The images are not only breathtaking but are very thought-provoking. There are descriptions next to each image which explains how the photographer managed to capture the image, and a section about the plant or animal in question. If you fancy being awestruck by the beauty of the world we live in, but also increase understanding into how delicate the web of life is and what, as a human race, we are doing to disturb that web, then this is a must-see. It's on until the 6th of May at the museum if you live near Edinburgh or are hoping to visit before then. After the museum, I met up with a friend and caught the train to Musselburgh, a lovely coastal town just east of Edinburgh. We walked to Inveresk, which is a conservation village sitting just above Musselburgh. We visited Shepherd House Garden, which was having an open day as part of Scotland's garden scheme, and today was their snowdrop festival. I'd visited this garden once before, a bit later in the season, and was excited to go back and see it at a different time of year. The garden was as joyous as I remember, with its dream greenhouse, cute free-range chickens, stained glass shell house, sculpture-filled spaces and pretty rill. The owners of the garden, Charles and Anne Fraser, have owned it since 1957 and have developed the acre of land over the years by themselves. I know that it must be quite a renowned garden, as a photo of it is on the spire of a book I have called 1,000 Gardens to See Before You Die. I loved how they had dotted sections of poems about snowdrops around the garden. This one, called Snowdrop Time by Mary Webb, reads, "Ah, hush, tread softly through the rhyme, for there will be a blackbird singing or a thrush. Like coloured beads the elm buds flush. All the trees dream of leaves and flowers and light. And see, the northern bank is much more white than frosty grass, for now is snowdrop time." The garden has over 70 named varieties of snowdrops, which sit alongside crocus, aconites, iris, daffodils, tulips and hellebores. As well as it being the first sunglasses day, it was also the first day this year that I saw bees. It was so cool to see the hens taking a dirt bath. One dream I have is to own rescue chickens, so I can hopefully see a snippet into my future life here. Another one of the snowdrop poems was another one by Mary Robinson, and this one was verse 1 of Ode to the Snowdrop. The snowdrop, winter's timid child, awakens to life bedewed with tears, and flings around its fragrance wild, and where no rival florets bloom, amidst the brave and chilling gleam, a beauteous gem appears. This snowdrop is a variety called Narissa, and it was definitely one of my favourites. There were loads of great sculptures in the garden, but this delicate snowdrop one was definitely fitting for this time of year. After our visit to Shepherd House Garden, we crossed the road to see another delightful garden, which was the Inveresk Lodge Garden, a walled flower and woodland space with a lake in the middle run by the National Trust for Scotland. The best thing about it was the beehives, 2 of which were active, and I could have spent so long just watching the bees go in and out, finding their first flowers of the year.